Hi everyone, hope you're keeping healthy and well. You're very much welcome to the FameLab Dublin Online Regional Heat. My name is Sharon Omawali and I'm a medical student. I'm also a FameLab alumna. I was the Ireland winner in 2018 and I had such a wonderful time getting to meet new people, learning more about science, and improving my communication skills, all three in one. FameLab is a global science communication competition that is run by the British Council and also the Cheltenham Science Festival. Unfortunately, this is the last year of FameLab, but I know without a doubt that as it started well, it's going to end well. And so I really do hope you enjoy yourselves tonight, and I hope that you have some good laughs and some good smiles. I would now like to pass it on to the host for the evening. God bless.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second of our Dublin regional heats. And as you heard there, since this is the last year of FameLab, not only is this the last regional heat before we get to the national final, this is the last regional heat ever. So this is a big deal, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. My name is Adam Murphy, and I'm here to sort of take you through things as they go. I'm your MC who will be spotlighting how wonderful the 8 talks we have coming up are. And it is FameLab, so the rules are as they always are with FameLab. There will be 8 talks tonight. They will have 3 minutes, just 180 seconds. Sounds like a short time. To them, it's even shorter. And they will explain to you some aspect of science using only their words and whatever props they can hold in the screen for you to see them. No PowerPoint allowed. And that as well seems harder than it looks. After that, they will go in front of our 3 judges, and the 3 judges will ask them a couple of questions for a minute, and they'll put them right on the spot because, you know, they're lovely and they're going to be very polite and nice to our 8 guests. Well, that means we're moving on to the judges. The judges, first of all, have to look for 3 different things. FameLab is judged on 3 C's: content, charisma, and clarity. Content is how correct the words that come out of the faces are. It doesn't matter how charismatic or how crystal clear your talk is if it's nonsense. The other one is clarity. That is how clear it is. Did you understand it? Did your eyes glaze over? Did you end up staring into space, not having a clue what was going on, thinking about literally anything else? And the last is charisma. Charisma is that thing that everyone can see, but no one can define, but everyone knows what it is when they see it. It's that nebulous category that makes everyone shrug, but everyone knows is actually still important. That is what our judges will be looking for. So let's bring in our 3 judges. The first is Judith Moffat. Judith holds the position of director at CPL Group and is responsible for CPL's technical divisions across pharma, biotech, medical device, engineering, construction, and supply chain. Judith has been in CPL for 15 years. She has a BSc in biology and chemistry, an MSc in science communication, and a diploma in effective management. Thanks for being with us, Judith.
Delighted to. Thank you so much.
Our second judge is Phil Smith. Phil Smith is a multi-award winning scientist with over 12 years of experience in designing, developing, and delivering public engagement programs all over Ireland. He's a physicist and an engineer, loving all things weird, wonderful, and explosive. Good adjective. He is also an accomplished presenter with RTE, having written and presented on over 320 shows, including his latest project, Homeschool Hub. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm pretty good. Delighted to be here.
Brilliant. We'll be coming to you later with the first couple of guests. And our last judge is Yvonne Halpin. Yvonne is the head of the Irish Marie Sklodowska-Curie office, working with stakeholders across academia, enterprise, and beyond to provide exciting pathways for researchers in Ireland. Her previous roles range from working in the private sector to academia to management of large-scale SFI research centre funding programmes. The Irish Marie Sklodowska-Curie office is supported by the Irish Research Council and jointly operated with the Irish Universities Association. How are things, Yvonne?
Very good. Thank you. Delighted to be here and very excited to hear the talks as well.
Great to have you with us. And I think you'll agree that those 3 resumes are the reason why my inexperienced person is just saying words at you instead of having the responsibility of having to judge the 8 people you'll be hearing next. And well, that means, you know what the rules are. We have 3 minutes a guest and then they'll have some questions. You know who our judges are. The last thing is to bring in our contestants and have them talk to us one at a time. And trust me, this is a nervous position to be in. They may have sent their videos in already, but they are still, I remember being in this place 7 years ago. It is an awkward place to be. So please be as gentle as you can and applaud at home, because wherever they are on the night, they'll be able to hear you, or at least feel what it's like to not have the applause. So we'll start with our first contestant, shockingly enough. Her name is Tembi Fashna. Tembi graduated from Trinity College Dublin with a BA in Human Genetics in 2018. After this, she worked in the Clinical Research Organisation. Tembi's currently working on a PhD investigating microRNA variation in multiple sclerosis. She's interested in making science accessible for non-scientists and telling lesser-told science stories. And her talk title is Malaria and Sickle Cell Anemia, Till Death Do Us Part.
Picture this, we're at a wedding. The lovely couple is waiting to be joined in marriage by an officiant in their lovely West African garden. Before the officiant can ask if anyone objects, a rowdy person comes running through from the audience, asking and complaining about how the love of their life has married somebody that has sickle cell anemia. This causes ripples throughout the crowd, and an aunt has to come forward to protect the couple. You might be wondering why this is so chaotic, and it is because sickle cell anemia is a very serious condition. It is caused by having two versions of a faulty gene that makes hemoglobin, which usually binds oxygen in red blood cells. In sickle cell red blood cells, there is lower oxygen carrying capacity, and they also have a different shape to regular red blood cells. And this different shape actually leads them to clump up and to bind to narrow blood vessels and block them off. This leads to severe pain and also damages organs in the long term. Many people around the world are born with at least one faulty version of the hemoglobin gene. However, 75% of these people are born in sub-Saharan Africa, which is also the area most affected by malaria. Malaria is caused by a parasite which is carried by mosquitoes, and in this context, the parasite is Plasmodium falciparum, and it infects red blood cells. Now, malaria and sickle cell anemia both shorten people's lifespans and reduce the probability of them having children. For a couple, they will have children, and those children will have one copy of the faulty hemoglobin and one copy of the regular hemoglobin. And this actually protects them from getting severe malaria, because in regular red blood cells, the parasite hacks the skeleton to stick them to blood vessels. But in sickle red blood cells, this hijacking is not as successful because of the type of hemoglobin they carry. That then means that these people with the two different versions are experiencing something called the heterozygote advantage, where they do not experience sickle cell anemia and they do not have severe malaria either. This is very advantageous in the context of malaria as a killer. Now, overall, our couple's existence is a reflection of how past threats have affected our present. Their past threats actually leaves the present and heads out of their wedding, so they continue with their marriage. But it is important for us to note that in the present, malaria and sickle cell anemia are still big threats to people's lives and require improved intervention and treatments all around the world, especially as globalization has opened our world up more. Thank you.
Starting with a really important topic there. Thanks very much, Tembi. And we're going to bring Tembi in now, and we're going to subject her to our incredibly nice judges for a couple of questions from them.
Tembi, what compelled you to go with that subject today?
That's a great question. So can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So in college, I did a degree in human genetics, but I'm also Nigerian. So there are a couple of conditions that I grew up hearing about and knowing about. But I think the concept of the heterozygote advantage was something that really, I have to say, blew my mind when I was doing my undergraduate degree. Just that the idea that in a specific context, a gene, a variant could be advantageous, but in another context, it wouldn't be. But then together, they make some people survive better. So absolutely personal interest and also just genetics as my background.
Great answer. Thanks, Emil.
And Yvonne, I think you wanted to ask something there.
Hi, Tembi. Thank you. That was really, really interesting. Really great to listen to. I just have a question. Is this, gene variant advantage currently being harnessed in any treatments at the moment, or any current interventions? Or I guess, where is the gap for treating this?
So the gap is in long-term treatments in terms of sickle cell anemia. So people that have this are essentially left with a few options. Hydroxyurea treatment, which in short, it tries to compensate for the poor hemoglobin quality by replacing it with like an older version of hemoglobin that's like you have in the womb. So that's not very accessible for people who live in low-income countries, and also it requires frequent hospital visits. Then the other thing that is available is stem cell transplantation. But again, the same thing, it's quite expensive, and in the long term, the survival rates are not as well understood. It's a very recent thing in terms of sickle cell anemia. So what the gap is in terms of treatment. That heterozygous advantage is useful for talking to patients. You could say, or to people, perhaps don't marry somebody who has the same, if you're a carrier, don't marry a carrier. But this is people we're talking about, so that's kind of where it ends. Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Tembi. I think you answered those stellarly, and we'll leave you to relax after being the first person up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, good start. Let's move on from there, and I'm sure the high bar will only be held. Our second contestant has specialized in psychology of digital mental health from both a psychology perspective and a human-computer interaction lens. He's currently working in DCU, contributing to the new BSc in Psychology and Disruptive Technologies. His name is Dara McCashin, and his talk is Mental Health and Technology, a Good or Bad Idea?
Hello, is anyone there? Is this meant to be my therapist? What? Why aren't you listening? That's not what I said. Why is nobody listening? These are the types of things that a client might say to a mental health professional during a face-to-face session. But increasingly what we're seeing is that smart technologies such as artificially intelligent chatbots or virtual assistants or virtual reality are all playing a role in either replacing or supplementing or augmenting the traditional face-to-face therapeutic experience. Is this a good thing? That is one of the key questions that I'm interested in. My name is Dara McCashin. I'm an assistant professor in psychology at Dublin City University. I'm particularly interested in the ethical issues surrounding this very interesting and timely topic, not least because of the pandemic. A lot of my research is focused on CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most evidence-based and widely used mental health interventions for a range of problems. CBT is particularly amenable to different forms of AI-driven interventions, such as chatbots, web-based virtual assistants, for example. And in my research, I've looked at some of the core ethical principles that are most important when we're seeking to build in AI into mental health interventions. And I propose 5 principles that we need to consider. One is the most important: do no harm. Can we be sure that these interventions over time, these types of technologies, do no harm to the individual? Are they actually beneficial? Do they work? Where's the data to say that they're effective over time? Thirdly, autonomy. To what extent can you as a client or potential client maintain your own autonomy with a smart technology that you may not fully understand? Fourthly, can these technologies operate in a judicial way in a world where there's ample inequalities and scarce resources? Finally, fifth, and most importantly, I would argue, how transparent do we make these technologies? They need to be transparent enough for you to be able to consent and understand what you're engaging with. These 5 key ethical principles have been derived from a recent evidence review of key technologies that are currently going about these types of new iterations of therapy. And I'm particularly interested in seeing if they can actually work, if they help designers, and if they help psychologists and clients. Is this the future of mental health? Imagine what it would be like if you were a client working with AI. Think about it.
I mean, 18 months into this remote working, and I still struggle to unmute myself when I'm supposed to. I can only imagine how difficult online therapy can get. Thanks very much, Dara. Let's get Dara back in now, and let's put him in front of our judges and get a couple of questions, get a little bit more information.
Dara, can you talk us through how this would happen in like a practicality, to use this this sort of technology in that CBT reference you were saying? Like, what would it be like as a patient? What would their experience be like?
Thanks, Judith. I suppose that there's a couple of principles that are kind of, you could see those principles in action with a couple of practical technologies. I guess CBT is the most commonly used one because it's an information processing model. So we have our thoughts, we have our feelings, and we have our behaviors. So one potential use of this technology could be a traditional face-to-face interaction between a therapist and a client. And then in between the sessions, they might actually use some form of a chatbot or a diary or an app that can use the AI to read what the thoughts are, what the feelings are, and what the behaviors are between sessions. And then this can be actually brought back at a face-to-face level. That's one blend between the two that I think nicely uses core psychological theory and the actual AI as in addition to that.
Great, thank you.
And Phil, can we come to you? Do you have any questions?
Sure, yes. Hi, Dara. Thanks for that. My question revolves around trust. I suppose if you hear the word information processing model, and people who necessarily would be involved in therapy aren't always at the same kind of level of understanding, how would you get someone to, engage when they say your therapy is going to be through AI? And would you consider using your FameLab talk as part of gaining that trust?
Great question. I always defer to children with this answer because what we're seeing with gaming technologies and avatars, and I actually did my PhD on the CBT game, there's what is now termed a digital therapeutic alliance, whereby there's a preference for avatars and games and animations to actually receive that psychoeducational material. So this could actually be different to the traditional face-to-face alliance. So keeping an open mind with that, and the so-called end user asking what they want all the while still trying to maintain, as I said, that transparency with the technology. I think a combination of those things helps build the very complex thing that we call trust.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dara. We'll trust that you've answered those brilliantly, and we'll head on. Thank you.
Thank you.
So going well already. 2 brilliant talks, and we're only 2 contestants in. What have you thought of the ones we've had so far? Please engage with us. There's a chat window somewhere around me now, and you can get on us on Twitter at FameLab_Ireland, and the hashtag is FameLab. So please let us know what you've been thinking of our talks and what you think of the talks that are coming up. Speaking of coming up, we'll move on to our next number 3 contestant. His name is Kevin Mercuria. Kevin is a PhD student at Trinity College Dublin, researching the impact of microRNAs on the gut microbiome. He's also an avid blogger, poetry fiction writer, and host of a hobby communications podcast called Metaphorogens. And his talk title is "You Are More Responsible of Your Hangover Than Your Drink."
Hey bartender, yeah, you behind the screen. How do people get drunk, Like, you see drunk people come and go, right? Now, I'm a Guinness man. Oh, cheers, mate. But where does this alcohol go after I drink it? And why do we get those bloody hangovers the next day? Really, using me as an example, let's think about where alcohol goes, and more specifically, the alcohol found in our favorite drinks, from beers to spirits, ethanol. Well, this may surprise you, but I've already downed a few drinks tonight, and all that ethanol is now sitting in my very empty stomach. 20% of that ethanol is being absorbed directly into my bloodstream, but the majority now passing into my small intestine much faster due to not eating, gets absorbed into my blood, and journeys to my liver. You can think of the liver as your blood's favorite Instagram filter. Proteins in the liver, called enzymes, pick out undesired attributes, leaving your blood nice and clean like Maybelline. In this case, ethanol undergoes first-pass metabolism in my liver, where enzymes convert ethanol into other byproducts. I'll get to those in a minute, because since I drank more than your Irish Uncle Joey tonight, ethanol has now passed through my liver and is traveling throughout my body. One location is my brain. The brain is just this mass collection of neurons communicating with each other via the release of chemicals called neurotransmitters. These chemicals contribute to how we think and act, some giving us excitation, while others giving us inhibition. Now, although ethanol leads to the release of the feel-good hormone, dopamine, it lowers the levels of the excitatory chemical, glutamate, while increasing levels of the inhibitory chemical, GABA, leading to experiences like slurring my words and losing my train of as my body drifts into blissful melancholy. Until the next morning, when my head will feel like it got hit by that train I just lost. The hangover is nature's response to me screaming, "I'm the king of the world," while dancing on top of your bar table. Now, there are several reasons why this may occur, each contributing in different ways. One is that drinking alcohol is dehydrating me, as I retain less water, leading to more frequent trips to your restroom. My brain starved of water, this will activate pain signals in my head. Another reason are those byproducts I mentioned earlier. During first-pass metabolism, one enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase converts ethanol into acetaldehyde, a toxic compound. Yes, the body converts one toxin into another. It does get converted to a more body-friendly compound by the enzyme aldehyde dehydrogenase, like acetate, but depending on how much ethanol is consumed, this may lead to more acetaldehyde in my blood and affect my body in disastrous ways. And therefore, even at the molecular level, you are more responsible of your hangover than your drink. Oh no, don't kick me out. I want to talk to you more about biochemistry.
Fantastic. Now, if only I can stop alcohol telling me that I can in fact sing, that would be amazing. So let's bring Kevin into our judges. So given how that talk ended and the explosive adjective in Phil's bio, I imagine he has a question for Kevin.
Of course, always anything with everything explosive. I suppose my question comes about choosing this topic. Was the motivation just a method to how to get drunk cheaper, or where did the passion and the interest for this come from you?
Yeah, so I was thinking about relevant topics for this FameLab talk, and I was thinking about how restaurants have been opening up and pubs have been opening up. So I decided to make it about people thinking about going out to pubs to get some pints with some friends, because you always go out to get pints after some work or to celebrate. But we never really think about where alcohol goes in our body and how alcohol gets metabolized by the body. So I thought, as things have been opening up now, this might be relevant to people, and they can start thinking about ways to reduce that hangover the next day, which is something that we all strive to do.
Cool. Thank you.
And Yvonne, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually had a question, but your last comment has led me on. So other than, I guess, drinking less to reduce the hangover the next day, what are the other ways? So if people still want to drink, what are the other ways that they could reduce, or what else can they do to reduce the hangover based on everything you just told us?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, I guess. A lot of companies actually try to sell products that reduce the hangover feeling the next day, but really the only scientifically proven thing that reduces a hangover or the symptoms of a hangover is just time and sleep. The body is just metabolizing the alcohol, changing that alcohol into other byproducts, which will eventually be removed by the body or used up by the body. But mainly time, and I guess because you're dehydrating yourself, just drink tons of water. Drink tons of water while you're drinking. While you're drinking alcohol. That seems to be what would help you.
Thank you.
I think wise words for us all. Thank you, Kevin. So we'll move on to contestant number 4 now. Her name is Olafunke Akiata. Olafunke's science background spans biochemistry, biotechnology, pharmaceutical sciences. However, in between, she also studied creative and professional writing. Olafunke started working for Chagask in August 2020. Through the postdoctoral training program, she has attended a few courses, including those tailored towards communicating science efficiently. And her talk title is The Different Hats of Microbial Biosurfactants.
This bar of soap can do a better job of removing dirt from my skin than the sanitizer. This is because most soap contain surfactants. Surfactants are amphiphiles, which have a dual nature, a water-loving head and a water-hating long fatty acid chain. At low concentrations, they exist as monolayers, single entities. However, at higher concentration, they self-assemble and have the ability to form micelles at a point called critical micelle concentration. Surfactants can lower the surface tension of water and also enable the miscibility of two opposing solvents. They have a current market value of $34 billion US. Unfortunately, they are toxic to the environment, spoiling nature for people like me. Enters the same but natural surfactants. A typical example is lecithin. It can be extracted from egg yolk. Incidentally, it can also be found in plants, animals, and human lungs. During my PhD, I worked on microbial biosurfactants. 3 of them in particular, namely rhamnolipids, sulforolipids, and surfactin. They can be secreted from bacteria and yeast. In addition to the surface lowering characteristics of chemical surfactants, they have other characteristics such as pharmaceutical applications. They can be used for bioremediation, and as well they can be used as antibacterial, antiviral, anti-cancer agents. They can also be used in food formulations. They can be used as cosmetics. I tested 3 particular biosurfactants on breast and blood-derived cancer cells and detected anti-cancer activity, which was good news. Unfortunately, they were also toxic to normal cells, though at higher concentration and longer duration. Hence, I encapsulated them into blood delivery vesicles, a higher form of micelles. My best application, however, was when I harnessed their antimicrobial characteristics in wound healing dressings. This was very successful and had potential prototypes for diabetic foot ulcer patients. It's time to invest more in biosurfactants because they are more eco-friendly and more sustainable. As a result of this, they can also be used in soaps. Thank you.
Getting told, interesting science in the middle of a park. How lovely. What more could you want while we're all stuck inside all the time? Well, let's bring Olafunke in now to talk to our judges and get a couple of questions. Yvonne, we'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts?
Hi, Olafunke. Thank you so much for that. That was really interesting. So I'm curious why these natural surfactants are not more widely used. I mean, is there a problem synthesizing them, or is it a cost issue? Particularly as soap is used so widely around the world, and especially now during the pandemic. I'm keen to understand that a bit more.
Yes, exactly. You nailed it on the head. They are very difficult to synthesize, and obviously petrochemical synthetic surfactants are cheaper. So they are more the go-to for, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Judith, what do you think?
Fascinating talk. My God, you fit in so much into such a short amount of time. Really well done. I've loads of questions, but it's along the lines of Yvonne's question. So obviously, industry is winning out on the existing products that are out there. But is there any companies that are using bio surfactants at the moment? You know, is there anywhere that we could go to get that type of product that you're aware of?
Yes, Evonik is a German company. I actually got some of my biosurfactants from them. So they're a big global company, and they've actually found a cheaper way of making one of the surfactants. I use the sulfurolipids, so that's very good, and they're also sustainable as well. So it's coming up more. Yeah,
that's good to hear. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, and I will move on. Thank you for answering those questions. So spectacular.
Thank you.
Right, that is, can you believe it already, the halfway point. That is 4 contestants, 4 talks, 4 to go. We have had an excellent standard, and can we keep this standard up? Of course we can keep the standard up. Of course we can. Our next contestant is called Tammy Strickland. Tammy works in a chronoepilepsy research lab that investigates the link between disrupted circadian rhythms and the development of acquired epilepsy. She is dedicated to understanding and designing innovative solutions to difficult to treat neurological conditions. Having previously taught biology and anatomy, Tammy really enjoys communicating science to anyone who is interested. Puts her in good company here. And her talk is called The Rhythms of Life, How the Body Tells Time.
Hey, what time is it? I know this sounds like a simple and obvious question. And before you look at your phone, or you look at your watch, or the internet, or wherever it is that you get your time from, stop. Don't even think about it. Put the technology away. I want you to sit back and listen to your body and tell me, what time is it? Because you see, at an organismal level, at a tissue level, at an organ level, at a cellular level, your body knows what time it is. Because we live on a planet that follows a 24-hour cycle, and we're optimized to function in the similar 24-hour schedule. And this isn't just us. This is almost all of the natural world. It's all mammals. It's most of the animal kingdom and plants as well. We're optimized to follow a similar 24-hour period and function and behave in different ways depending on the time of day. But how does this work? How does our body tell time? How do our cells tell time? Well, part of the equation involves things called cues, which include things like light and how we respond to them. There's also other cues, including things like food anticipation and metabolism and temperature changes and things like that. And while, yes, this is really important for determining, hey, what time of day it is, it doesn't actually make up the clock itself. That's something else. There's something separate going on there. A really nice experiment was performed in the 1960s, which demonstrated this nicely. A bunch of people were shoved into a bunker underground, and they didn't know anything about the time of day that was going on outside. They were given no cues, and yet their physiology still was maintained at a 24-hour cycle. So this shows that even with no cues, you can still function on a 24-hour schedule. But how does this work? How are we telling time? The answer lies within the cells, or every cell within your body. What does every cell in your body have? DNA. And what's contained within that DNA? Genes. The answer to this circadian rhythm, the signaling that dictates our daily schedules, is in how genes are expressed every day. There's a certain group of genes that are expressed highly at one time in the day and that decrease throughout the day and ultimately reset every day. These genes drive expression of other genes and therefore derive function in every cell in the body. So if you think that you don't know the time, that your cells don't know the time, believe me, they do. And if they don't, that can actually lead to problems. Because if your cells don't know what time it is and then function in a chaotic way, that can actually predispose you to a lot of different conditions, including metabolic disorders and neurological disorders.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Although I do feel I have to apologize. I looked at my watch before you told me not to. So I'm going to apologize there, and we will bring you in. Yvonne, we'll start with you this time. Is there anything you'd like to ask Tammy?
Hi, Tammy. Really enjoyed that. Thank you. It was very engaging. So I guess having this knowledge and understanding the body clock and our circadian rhythm, can that help us navigate any of the challenges that people face, on a day-to-day or anything like that? Like what's the impact on wider society?
That's an excellent question. I suppose I've kind of two thoughts about that. I mentioned the fact that we're optimized to kind of work on this 24-hour cycle. So, all cells in our body are going to behave a certain way depending on the time. So that has impacts when it comes to things like vaccinations, possibly. If your immune cells are going to function a certain way at a certain time. So if we're going to treat someone in a hospital, potentially they may react better at a certain time of day to drugs. So that's super important for kind of immune system sort of function. And also just in terms of, sleep deprivation, working long hours, working nights, it all has implications on physiology, on human health. So absolutely, if we could be a little bit kinder to the workforce, or if we could kind of understand the pathways a little bit more, perhaps we could, the society would function a little bit better. Similarly, when it comes to the likes of jet lag, if we understood the molecular basis of that, perhaps we could come up with a nicer way to recover after traveling a long way for work or something like that. So,
not a problem many of us face at the moment, unfortunately. No. Thank you.
And then Judith, can we ask you? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. The sleep industry, I was reading recently, is something like a $58 billion industry, and that's probably more now at this stage. What impact of the circadian rhythm research? I mean, like, how can this translate into really beneficial advice to people as opposed to taking sleeping tablets? Have you any thoughts on that?
That's a really interesting question. So my research focuses on at the moment focuses on people with epilepsy and how they can tend to develop seizures at a certain time of day, and how us monitoring that can help us understand how to treat people on that basis. When it comes to people who have other sleep disorders, perhaps if we can understand how our relationship with our environment better, we could come up with alternative therapies. I know there are some available drugs at the moment that are natural sort of remedies like melatonin, which reprogram the molecular clock and help us kind of sync up a little bit better. But perhaps again, if we sync up with our external cues a little bit better, sunlight, exercise, things like that, we could enhance kind of the responses of patients who have sleep disorders. I think there's a lot of scope. But perhaps, again, understanding the molecular basis and the genetic basis, there's some futuristic therapies on the horizon. Who knows? Maybe gene therapy, who knows? Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks very much, Tammy. We'll leave you be now. That was great. And anything that results in better sleep is always good in my book. Keeping the great train running, we're moving on to number 6. Number 6 is a PhD student researching adipose tissue biology and type 2 diabetes. He studied science in NUI Galway, where he specialised in human anatomy. He now also works as an anatomy demonstrator at UCD and is enthusiastic about biology and the human body. His name is James White, and his talk is Leave the Buzzing to the Bees.
Oh, hey. I didn't see you there. I'm listening to Dua Lipa's new album. Yeah, she's great. And yes, these are my new earphones. They're not AirPods, but they work just okay. But what would it be like if we had earphones stuck in our ears all of the time, and we couldn't adjust the volume, and we couldn't change the song? Now imagine, it's not even a song playing, but it's a buzzing noise, like an angry swarm of bees inside your ears. What I'm describing to you is a real condition experienced by many people called tinnitus. Tinnitus is where a noise can be heard in the absence of an external sound. The loudness and quality of the noise can vary from person to person. Some people hear a buzz, some people hear a hiss, and some people hear a hum. Try for a moment to imagine these noises being there every hour of the day, each day of your life. The biology behind tinnitus is still not completely understood, but here is one theory on how it's thought to occur. Deep inside our ears, there are tube-shaped structures called the cochlea, rolled up like a snail shell. The cochlea contains fluid and hair cells, and when sound reaches our ears, it vibrates the fluid inside the cochlea, and the hair cells detect the movement of the fluid and send a signal to our brain. And this is how we hear sound. But just like the hair cells on my head, the hair cells in the cochlea can die with age or due to damage from loud noise exposure. And you can't get a hair transplant for the hairs inside your ears. So, the hair cells die, The brain receives less signals from the ear, and the area of the brain responsible for hearing begins to spontaneously develop its own signals, and this is thought to be a cause of tinnitus. As we emerge from lockdown, a major source of loud noise exposure will be nightclubs. The law in Ireland says that employees in the workplace exposed to noise levels above 85 decibels should wear ear protection, as continued exposure to noise at this level can lead to hearing loss and with that, tinnitus. In one study, noise levels were measured in 9 nightclubs in Ireland, and all the nightclubs had noise levels above 85 decibels. However, ear protection was only worn by employees in 1 of the nightclubs. On average, the employees were exposed to 92 decibels, but for those employees who wore ear protection, their noise exposure was reduced to 76 decibels. So what can us nightclub goers do? How can we protect our hearing while we're having a dance? Well, we can also wear ear protection. These are my earplugs, and I just pop them in whenever I need. And if somebody asks you, what are those things inside your ears? Well, just tell them they're the new AirPods. Or just tell them you're wearing earplugs, because protecting your hearing is cool. You only get one pair of ears, so look after them and leave the buzzing to the bees. Thank you.
Right, well, that means I'm going to add earplugs to my shopping list next time I'm out. Thanks for that, James. Let's bring in James so we can have a chat with our judges and we can all listen with our hopefully still functional ears. Phil, let's start with you this time. Do you have any questions for James?
Sure. I mean, like the only way to listen to Maniac 2000 is at 92 decibels. So, I mean, there is a reason why all of those clubs had it. My question comes around to the mental health side of this stuff, and has any looked into this? Because obviously there's the physical effects of tinnitus, but the psychological effects as well. Is there something that you've looked in at, or is there ongoing research in that area?
So it is known to impact people's mental health. So it can induce anxiety and depression, and impact people's well-being and how they go about performing everyday tasks. And one of the main and only treatments for tinnitus is cognitive behavioral therapy. There's not many therapeutics in the form of drugs, and cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the main therapies because it can help people adjust their feelings around tinnitus. And rather than feeling scared or threatened by it, they kind of become used to it and they don't feel threatened by it anymore. So yeah, that's a big aspect of tinnitus treatment.
Cool, thank you.
And then, Yvonne, can we come to you and see what you had to say?
Hi, James. Thank you. Really interesting. I'm curious to know about the, protection of staff in working environments and that kind of thing. Do you know if compliance with ear protection, all that, is it ever monitored or policed? And are there any consequences for business owners if staff aren't being protected in the right way?
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. That's a great question. So I think there is an authority in Ireland that does go around and measure levels of noise in nightclubs. Obviously, it hasn't happened recently, but I'm unsure what the repercussions are for those nightclubs. Nightclubs should have a risk assessment done where they reach above 80 decibels, which nightclubs generally do. And in that particular study that I referenced in my talk, they interviewed managers and asked managers were they aware of the noise levels that they have to provide ear protection at, and the managers weren't aware of that. Only 2 of the managers in the nightclubs actually had risk assessments done, but they didn't have them there on premises. So it's something that really should be enforced, and also employees should be educated so they can empower themselves and make decisions around protecting their hearing in those environments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, super important. Thank you so much, James. Our next speaker tonight is Ashwati Balakrishnan. Ashwati is currently a first-year PhD student in chemical and biopress engineering at UCD NIRBT. She has a master's degree in biopharmaceutical engineering and undergraduate degree in chemical engineering, and her talk title is Aurora, Bright, Bold, and Beautiful.
We have all heard about or seen the northern and southern lights. Also known as the aurora, it is a beautiful display of colors seen in the night sky in places such as Norway, Sweden, or Iceland in the north, and Australia or New Zealand in the south. But have you ever wondered what actually happens? What is the real reason we see these colors? The sun releases charged particles, which due to their extreme temperatures has a high amount of energy. And because of this, they get thrown out into the space in all different directions. When these particles come towards the Earth, they enter the Earth's atmosphere and the Earth's magnetic field. And because of this, they get pulled towards either pole of the Earth. Inside the atmosphere, these particles then collide with the different gases that are present, such as oxygen or nitrogen. And this causes the electrons of the gas to get excited, meaning that they have a higher energy. Now, in order to go back to its original state, this extra energy has to be released, which is done in the form of light, which is actually what we see. But what is the reason behind the different colors? Now, the colors are caused due to two main reasons. Number one is the type of gas that the particle collides with. For example, oxygen gives out red light or green light, whereas nitrogen gives out blue or purple light. The second reason is the height at which these gases are present. Now, each color takes a different amount of time to appear in the sky. For example, green light appears in less than a second, whereas red light takes much longer. It takes around 2 minutes to appear. So as we move closer to the Earth, as the height decreases, there are more and more collisions of these gases with other molecules that are present in the atmosphere. This means that there's less time for the gases to give out light, and so essentially the colors that are produced faster become more common as we move towards the Earth. So this is why we see the different shades in the lights. Initially on top you see red, followed by green, and then the different shades of purple and blue. Sometimes these colors even overlap to give shades of orange, yellow, or pink. Now, this is the reason behind the blend of colors that is seen in the northern and southern lights, and understanding the concept and the science behind it can help us truly appreciate the beauty of it more.
I've heard people say things before, like if you explain too much of the science behind something, then it's not as beautiful as it was, or it loses its mystery. And I think talks like that show us how wrong that really is, that knowledge just makes things more beautiful. Well, let's get Ashwati back for a few questions with our judges. So Judith, can I come to you first?
Yeah, no problem. I have loads of questions, but I suppose the one I'd say is, do the seasons affect the different colours in the sky?
Yes, usually it is like more, not the colors, but like I guess you can say it affects the amount of light that we see, because usually in the poles during winter it's much darker, obviously, than during summer, and so the lights are just much clearer that time, but not the colors as such.
Not the colours, okay, no worries. And just one quick one: do airplanes have an impact on the colours because of their emissions as they pass by?
That is a really good question. I don't think it would. I'm not too sure about this, but I don't think it should, because I guess airplanes fly a little lower than the entire atmosphere. So
no problem.
I don't think it should.
Thanks a million. Great talk.
And Phil, over to you.
Sure. I wanted to know, obviously, and I completely agree, the more science you know behind it, the better things are. The Aurora Borealis, is it possible to artificially create, either on a small scale, locally, or even, can we get some in Donegal or anything? What could we do? Is there a way to artificially create this effect?
Yes, I think there will be, because basically it's just like when the electrons hit the gases, and we can simulate this whole thing on a small scale. And when the colors are given off at different wavelengths, this is all usually it is something that is possible on a small scale, I believe.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ashwati. Hopefully I can have my own little aurora lamp in my room someday. And we are now already on to our 8th speaker and our final speaker. Now, Amal Dalmati is an electronics engineer specializing in optical communications and currently pursuing a PhD at DCU. He thrives to design new techniques that will make the internet more reliable and accessible to the people living in remote places. And his talk is Invisible Laser Dance for the Connected World.
For the last 1 year, we all are witnessing the wonders of invisible laser dance. Now you might be wondering, are laser invisibles and do they dance? If yes, what are their signature moves? And more importantly, how it's playing important role in my daily life. In order to understand this, just recall the moment when Ireland and rest of the world announced lockdown. We were all concerned about health of our friends and families while being worried about our work. Then internet became our savior and work from home became new reality. Internet helped us to stay connected with friends, families and loved ones while being physically apart. But do you know how this internet works? There is a whole world of laser, optical fiber cables and much more working in the background for us. Just take a look at Wi-Fi router in your house. There is a cable connected to it. Multiple cables from nearby houses are combined at a location called Optical Network Unit or ONUs. And multiple ONUs are combined in a central office. And multiple central offices within a country are combined at a location called data center. One data center from one country is connected to data center from another country. And that's how the whole world is connected. All these ONUs, central offices and data centers are connected with each other using fiber optic cable. These cables are made up of a silica glass material and they are as thin as our hair size. There are thousands and thousands of kilometers of such cables are laid under ocean, underground, connecting the entire world. Laser is used for transmitting data from one point to the another point through these cables. When you attend an online meeting or an online event like FameLab, all our text, voice, and audio is converted into fixed set of data points known as constellation points. And this data is modulated on a laser. That means this electrical signal is converted into optical light. And as we speak, laser jumps from one constellation point to the another constellation point. That's how laser is dancing. And most of this laser works in the invisible spectrum of electromagnetic waves. That means we can't see them using our eyes. That's how it's an invisible laser dance. If I'm talking to a friend in Ireland, it's a relatively short distance. So laser performs only two moves, that is 1 or 0. But if I'm talking with my family back in India, there is a lot of traffic going on. So in that case, laser performs multiple moves, either 4 moves or 8 moves, or there are 16 moves. All these lasers, fiber optic cables, and associated technology is helping us to stay connected with friends and families. Next time when you are on an online meeting, just remember that there is a dancing laser having fun in the background. Thank you.
And isn't it fitting to end with how you're able to listen to this tonight? Brilliant. Right, well, let's go to our judges for one last time with them all for one last batch of questions. Yvonne, can we start with you, please?
Hi, Amal. Thank you so much for that talk. I think it was very relevant to our everyday lives at the moment. And I think the last kind of year and a half has shown us that, you know, speed is better for internet connections and we want faster and we want more capacity and all that kind of thing. So I'm just curious, is it the type of laser or the material being used which dictates, you know, speed and capacity in our networks, or is it something else or some other component of the infrastructure?
So I'll say the laser doesn't dictate the speed. The speed is limited by, say, once the signal passes through these optical cables, there is a loss in the system as well. So that dictates the speed. Again, another thing is, so we need to convert. So all this we are speaking, that is converted first in electronics domain. And then you have to convert that from electronics domain to the optical domain. So that conversion is majorly limiting how fast we can process or transmit the data as well.
So if we can improve that, we can improve speed.
Yeah, the optics works with the speed of a light, but electronics works like not that much high speed. So there is.
Thank you.
And we started with you, Judith. So let's bookend everything and end with you as well. Do you have any questions?
I do, and forgive this question, it's probably an ignorant one. I come from a biology and chemistry background, but Amal, that was fascinating. I learned so much there. What's the difference between a visible and an invisible laser?
Yeah, that's an interesting factor. And just to mention before that, there is nothing as like a ordinary question, just it's different. You work in different field and I work in different. Yeah, so the major difference, like the wavelength which emits, the laser which emits this wavelength. So the colors we can see is like they are visible range of electromagnetic spectrum. And the one which are transmitting through the optical fiber cables, they are invisible to our eyes. So that's the difference.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Well done.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Amal. And thank you to our judges for all their questions as well. So that's it. 8 speakers, 8 talks, and a raft of really interesting questions. I think you'll agree with me that they were all brilliant. And wherever you are at home, give them a little round of applause. And I'll know if you don't. If I had my way, they would all go off and win, and they would go off and we'd have a 50-person final in late September in Ireland. But unfortunately, that can't happen. So what's going to happen off now is the judges are going to disappear off into their own super secret, special, deeply covert breakout room, where they will have a chat and they will come to a very difficult decision about the first and second place. And I am really glad I'm not in their shoes, and I just get to say everyone's brilliant and everyone's my favorite. But in the audience, you're not let off the hook either. There is an audience vote and an audience prize to be delivered. There will be a slide somewhere appearing telling you what to do, but in words, if you go to FameLab2021.com, you will see a list of the talks and you can vote for them. And please, as in all good democracies, 1 vote per person. And to give you a quick reminder, what you heard Tembi Fashina talking about malaria and sickle cell anemia till death do us part. Dara McCashin spoke about mental health and technology, a good or bad idea. Kevin Mercurio said that we are more responsible of our hangover than our drink. Olafunke Akioda said the different hats of microbial biosurfactants. Tammy Strickland brought us the rhythm of life, how the body tells time. James White told us to leave the buzzing to the bees. Ashwati Balakrishnan brought us the aurora, bright, bold and beautiful. And Almal Damari spoke about the invisible laser dance for the connected world. Those were your 8 wonderful speakers. So please pick among them and make the difficult decision of your favorite for the audience prize. And the audience winner will be announced somewhere in the chat window. I don't know what the orientation of things are going to be, but it'll be about somewhere. You'll see it. I don't know. Either way, before then, we've got to give the judges some time. It's going to be difficult, so they're going to need a few minutes at least to figure it out. So we're going to have a little bit of an interval to give them some time to do the hard work while we get to enjoy some fun. We're going to go on a trip down FameLab Ireland memory lane with our interval act from the 2020 national final, Emer Maguire. International award-winning science communicator and TV and radio presenter, Emer looks at the oddities of human behaviour through her ingenious musical comedy. Full of laughs and sprinkled with science, Emer shares her stories of being socially awkward, celebrates the nuances of being a middle child, and sings about how to deal with life in lockdown. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some feel-good musical comedy with a factual twist.
Hi everybody, I'm Emer Maguire and thank you so much for having me as part of the FameLab Ireland final. I know this is an incredibly unusual way to be having the final, but I really hope everybody's keeping safe and healthy and happy during this uncertain time. It's also very weird coming to you from a room in my house, but this is quite cool. I've been watching the final so far, I'm sure, and I'm also sure that everyone will have been absolutely amazing. I feel like I've watched so many FameLabs over the years, and the Irish final always amazes me. I feel like there's so much talent on this island, so thank you so much for sharing your work with us. I usually like to tell people a little bit about myself at things like this, just so you guys can get to know me. And do you know what this is like? Actually, I can't get this thought out of my head. This is kind of like it's back in the day and I'm doing like a 2-camera getting to know me video for like a weird dating agency or something. But the reason I'm here at FameLab is because I'm a past FameLabber myself. So back in 2015, which seems like an absolute lifetime ago, it seems forever ago, I won FameLab UK and I've kind of been in love with science communication ever since. But what I also love is writing music, so I thought I could leave the complicated science to you guys and join you for a bit of a light-hearted musical interval set with a couple of scientific facts thrown in for good measure. Basically see if I can cheer everybody up a little bit, given, as I say, the weird times that we're in. So to give you a little bit of an insight into who I am, I kind of started to ask people around me, family, friends, sent out messages and said, look, I want to write this song introducing myself. What words come into your head whenever you think about me? And I was kind of expecting, you know, the classics, like hilarious, charming, adorable. But the one that consistently came out on top was socially awkward. I know, I don't get it either. I'm an absolute delight, but people kind of said that over and over again. So I thought, do you know, maybe it's true. People are probably saying it for a reason. So I started to look into the science behind being socially awkward to see if there was anything in it. You know, I was kind of hoping it was going to be like that whole thing. If one sense was dulled, you know, another would be heightened. And it kind of is the case. So there's actually a psychologist called Tai Tashiro who discovered that people who are socially awkward have some specialist skills. And let's be honest, guys, this is a science competition. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only socially awkward one here, am I right? And this psychologist found that socially awkward people see things differently, which can be an advantage. They can have a different perspective. He also found that research shows that socially awkward people excel in science, technology, and maths. So if we didn't know that. And finally, that what people lack in social skills, they make up for in striking, intense talent in one area. I thought that was so cool. I loved that. But for me, kind of in the true style of not fitting in terms of being socially awkward, I don't really have an intense striking talent in one area. What I do have, though, is a guitar. So I thought I could write my introductory song based on that. And this is about some of the kind of socially awkward situations that I found myself in during the course of my lifetime. I hope some of you fellow FameLabbers out there can identify with this. This is Socially Awkward, part 1 of 47. Socially awkward, it's like my brain is sick. My normalness gets blurred when I'm out in public. I giggle at funerals, think that it's okay to just smile and nod even though I cannot hear you. Please don't ask me a question, cause I have got no idea what we're talking about. One time I walked into a shop, didn't have what I needed in stock, but now I can't leave without buying anything that would only look suspicious. My paranoia's fictitious, I don't care, I spend a fortune on things I don't need. I buy some milk and I'm lactose intolerant. I'm gluten free and I bought 7 loaves of wheaten bread. I bought some cigarettes, I don't even know how to smoke. I should have walked out of the shop, instead I'm socially awkward. It's like my brain is sick, my normalness gets blurred when I'm out in public. I giggle at funerals, stiffen when you praise me. Think it's okay to say your ma seems why lazy, if she's really lazy. Why would I say she's not? She seems pretty lazy. So now I'm trying to leave my work, but up ahead I see some jerk smiling and holding the door for me. I alternate between run and walk, I hope he doesn't try to talk. This weird shuffle's making it look like I need to pee, but I just say thanks and he holds open another door. I say thanks again and then think, oh no, I've been trapped here before. If we don't break the cycle, this will never end. So I jump out the nearest window, thanks a lot my friend. I'm socially awkward, it's like my brain is sick. My normalness gets blurred when I'm out in public. I giggle at funerals, stiffen when you hug me. Think it's okay to say that baby's ugly, if it's really ugly. Why would I say he's cute? He's clearly ugly. I'm socially awkward. So I think in terms of being socially awkward, I feel like there's a little bit of a reason why people think that I'm a little bit weird. So I say weird, people usually say, and if you've got this before, this is the same thing. People usually say, oh, Emer's very quirky, isn't she? Very quirky. I know they mean weird. It's fine. But I feel like that all kind of started for me in childhood. I feel like I had quite a pretty bad start in life. So whenever I was about 2.5, okay, I kind of developed these weird symptoms. And when my brother was 2.5, he developed the same thing. And the symptoms included things like being ignored by our parents, or kind of having these constant feelings of mediocrity. And it turned out we were both middle children. I wonder if there's anybody here in the group who performed today that's a middle child. I'm guessing yes, because it's a very middle child thing to get up and demand attention on a stage for any amount of minutes. So I'm guessing we've got a few. But middle child syndrome was actually suggested by a psychologist in the early 20th century who thought, yes, this is a definite syndrome. And he said that anyone who wasn't the oldest child or the youngest child counted as a middle child. There's even a Middle Child Day. Did you know that? No, nobody cares. It's August 12th. I keep telling my parents every year, keep ignoring me. So you have to look back and think, why do middle children feel left out? So the oldest get the privileges and responsibilities by virtue of being the oldest. The youngest get babied and spoiled, and then the middle child has no clear role in the family. And I always think about it, my parents would say about my big sister, and this is the eldest child. We're so proud of her. She's getting the keys to the farm. She is going to carry on our family's belief, all that kind of stuff. And then about my wee brother, the baby. And Sean's the wee baby. Isn't he adorable? Isn't he lovely? He's about 6'3" and he's 24. How lovely is he? He's a lovely wee thing. Nobody has ever said about me or my other brother, and these are the middle ones. Nobody says a thing. I think they've forgotten we exist. But the guy who suggested middle child syndrome said that the lack of parental attention that you receive as a middle child makes you more likely as an adult to fight injustice, which I thought was so cool. In fact, more than half of the US presidents to date have been middle children. It's a pretty good way to get your parents' attention, isn't it? But I wanted to look for studies that talked about the positivities associated with being a middle child. And one study said that middle children are more likely to be socially strong and have flourishing careers. And guys, I have to say, flourishing is not the F word that my dad used when I said I was going to, pursue a career in musical scientific comedy. But I decided to write a song about all the things I've experienced as a middle child to kind of rise up against the injustices of always being this kind of pale from standing in your sibling's shadow, of always having to sit in that middle seat in the back of the car when you were wee. That was definitely the job of a middle child. So I hope some of you can identify with this. This is middle child syndrome. You know that you're the middle child if every time your mother smiled around you, you both knew she was thinking about the other two. You know that you're the middle child if when your family all played hide and seek, it was a week before they noticed you were gone at all. You know that you're the middle child if every time your dad called your name without shame, you'd say Catherine, Mary, Connor, Sean, Sarah, Susan, Kara, John, Mary, Joseph, Toto, Ben. What's your name again? Middle children full of crippling self-doubt and jealous rage. Middle children unfairly disliked because of birth order and age, and we'll never understand why we're vilified until we have our own kids and we hate our own middle child. You know that you're the middle child if any time you ever cried, your mum took you aside and said, I'll give you something to cry about. Even though you'd broken both your legs, your parents didn't really care, but they brought your sister to A&E when she got chewing gum in her hair. You know that you're the middle child if you showed your parents this song and they both laughed along and told you that it wasn't wrong. Middle children full of crippling self-doubt and jealous rage. Middle children unfairly disliked because of birth order and age, and will never understand why we're vilified until we have our own kids and we hate our own middle child. So that's kind of a little bit of an insight into the mind of a middle child, and like I say, I hope a couple of you do identify with that. So finally, thank you so much for sticking with us so far. Finally, given the time that we're in, I wanted to talk just for a tiny second about, loneliness and lockdown. I know people are having a really hard time at the minute, and I once read a really interesting study about the power of music on the mind. And it was a study by a psychologist called Hanser, and her study focused on looking at the connection between music and scores of anxiety and depression in older, sometimes isolated adults. And what her study did was it split groups of adults into 3 groups. One group got full music therapy, one group got diluted music therapy, and one group got no music therapy. And in both groups who got music therapy, there was a dramatic decrease in their anxiety and depression scores, and those scores lasted long term. And for me, I just think the fact that music has been proven to make us feel good. There are lots of studies talking about the fact that music lowers your stress levels, can even improve levels of immunoglobulin A antibody in your saliva. It can improve your blood pressure, help with anxiety and general well-being. I think given the fact that music has been proven to make us feel good, and given the fact that we're in lockdown, I could play a song linking those things. So one day into lockdown, I was very, very bored, and I was trying to figure out things that I could do around the house to keep occupied, and I started to write a list of those things, and then I thought, why don't I put this in a song? So it's a song about ideas for things that you could do to keep occupied, and this one is literally just for the happiness factor. This is Lockdown. I really hope you enjoy this. So we're in lockdown, stuck in quarantine. I'm socially distant, but I think I've always been. So here's some ideas to keep you occupied, to keep our souls happy while we're hanging out inside. Call up your sister, tell her she's got class. FaceTime your granny and agree it's terrible they cancelled mass. WhatsApp your brothers, check their money's doing fine. Text your dad and suggest he pours your mother a glass of wine. Organise your cupboards, find some random herbs and spices. Discover you'll still never use that turmeric in this crisis. Look down the sofa for an extra bit of cash. We'll need it when this is over and we're all out on the lash. We're in lockdown, stuck in quarantine. I'm socially distant, but I think I've always been. So here's some ideas to keep you occupied, to keep our souls happy while we're hanging out inside. Go on and cut your fringe, you've always wanted bangs. Who cares if it goes wrong, no one will see you're ostracized. Have a major Netflix binge, maybe learn to dance. Eat Doritos for your dinner while you're chilling in your pants. Act out scenes of movies with your dog playing the lead. Or pretend you're in Crufts and he'll win best in breed. Or get out your playing cards, have a game of Snap. Maybe donate some toilet roll unless you're full of crap. We're in lockdown, stuck in quarantine. I'm socially distant, but I think I've always been. So here's some ideas to keep you occupied, to keep our souls happy while we're hanging out inside. Try some online yoga, learn to speak Francais. Gather up your friends and have a Facebook Live soiree. Open up your wardrobe and have a fashion show. Look into the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful. Do 100 push-ups, iron everything in sight. Eat your body weight in chocolate, tell yourself you'll be alright. Maybe make a scrapbook, learn to play the violin. WhatsApp your football teammates while you're knocking back the gin. We're in lockdown, stuck in quarantine. I'm socially distant, but I think I've always been. So here's some ideas to keep you occupied, to keep our souls happy while we're hanging out inside. Write a song about a virus that's trying to ruin the world, stealing hopes and lives and money, but it won't keep down this Irish girl. If we all just pull together, keep each other entertained, won't be long till we are out there dancing in the rain. We're in lockdown, stuck in quarantine. I'm socially distant, but I think I've always been. Just keep your head up, wash your hands and keep combined. Stay apart and stick together, most importantly, be kind. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Emer Maguire. A massive good luck to everyone who performed tonight, and also a massive thank you to FameLab for having me. Hopefully I'll get to see all of you in person someday.
Isn't that fab? Emer's one of those almost annoyingly talented people who can do it all. And I like the worst bit on top of that is she's also absolutely lovely. Anyway, Emer Maguire there, bringing us tales of crushing relatability, I think is what you'd call that. So we have our judges back. We are now able to move on with the serious business, the announcing the winners. We have, first of all, as I said, an audience prize. That will be coming from you. Judges don't decide that, you do. That will be appearing somewhere along with what the prize is for that. But if we could get the judges back in, I think Phil Smith has been nominated or perhaps kicked forward to be the head judge for this. So what did you think, Phil? How difficult was that?
Well, what a pleasant way to spend an evening. Like, I mean, I'm delighted to have joined Judith and Yvonne in actually enjoying talks, because often when you're tasked with judging something, people feel like it's an arduous task, and coming up with the result at the end is, because when you're doing something that people care about and people are passionate about, generally the standard is high, and it was tonight. And it was an incredibly close decision, but tonight was also enjoyable because you got to see people who care about what they do and care about telling other people about what they do and what they do, what happens in the world. And ultimately that's what science is. It's about making the world a better place, whether it's in technology, engineering, maths, or general sciences. And personally, and I think I speak for both Judith and Yvonne, that we were delighted to be part of it. Even with Judith holding off her kids from getting online tonight, and the frustration that will cause them and her husband, that's a price that we are willing to pay to be here. FameLab is a fantastic opportunity for people, and I wanted, just on behalf of the judges, to thank everybody for taking part, because science and communication is an incredibly important thing to do in the world, so that people are informed, they can make better decisions and not just go on fake news or something else. So the fact that you even took part and submitted into the competition is an amazing thing, an amazing step forward in bringing your skills forward. And to the audience who are with us here today, it's fantastic to have you here and have you engaging and taking part. And Adam and everybody else a part of the family, I think, thank you for having us, and it's been our pleasure. And it's been brilliant having you. And it is a sacrifice that Judith's family are willing to make.
They're shouting downstairs. They're going to barge in. Don't worry. Absolutely my pleasure. I've loved it. Every minute of it.
Brilliant. Well, let's get the drum rolls going. Let's get announcing our runner-up and our winner. Right. Let's start with our runner-up for this evening. And as you've heard, it was an incredibly difficult decision. It's one that I'm glad I haven't had to make anyway. And tonight, and I'm going to quickly glance over at the text regularly to make sure I don't say the wrong name, but tonight our runner-up is Tembi Fashina. Congratulations, Tembi. We're going to bring you in. So, how are you feeling? What do you think?
I am pleasantly surprised. Everyone did so well tonight. So I'm happy that the judges enjoyed it, and I hope everybody else enjoys it, the talk. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly enjoyed yours and all the others. Well done, Tembi. And that's it. We have gone through our talks. We have had our interval act. We have announced our audience vote. It is time to announce the winner. And tonight, that winner is Tammy Strickland. Congratulations, Tammy. So, how are you feeling? That was, what do you think?
Wow, that's incredibly shocking. Oh my God. Wow. Sorry. All the talks were so incredible. I'm so in shock. Wow. Whew, God. Oh. Oh.
Brilliant. Well, I think that says it all better than any of us ever could. Congratulations, Tammy, and we will see both Tammy and Tembi in the national final, the last ever Ireland national final, at the end of September. Thank you so much, Tammy.
Oh wow! Oh God, I'm so excited. Oh God, thank you.
if you've been watching tonight and thought, I think I could do that too, well, your chance isn't over yet, because there will still be a video heat where all the videos go in, and winners from that will be picked and sent forward to the national heat as well. And there will be a link to putting that together where you can send those videos appearing again somewhere in the chat. I still don't know where it is, but it will be there. And please do send something in, get involved. It's worth a go. You've nothing to lose. Please join us. And that is it for the evening. We will call it a night there. Thank you for joining us. It's been an incredible talk. It's been an incredible thing to take part in. And all that's left for me to do then is to check over and make sure I have my list of thank yous, that I don't mess it up, and to go through them all. And first is to thank our contestants. This isn't an easy thing to do, but it is, as Phil said, an incredibly important and really fulfilling thing to do. Hopefully you had fun. I know it's weird to stand up in front of people, and I'm one of those weirdos who enjoys it, but hopefully you did as well, and hopefully you had a time just being part of it. And thank you for all your talks. Thank you to the judges as well for that incredibly difficult decision of picking our two winners. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And of course, thanks to everyone at home on the other side of that screen for being a part. Let us know what you thought. There's a chat box somewhere. Let us know what you thought of all the talks, and I'm sure all your comments are going to be positive, and I'll be sad if they're not. Thank you so much. And thanks as well to everyone on the team who have put this together. Aoife, Liz, Islu, and Niall on the tech. Thank you all so much. And then the final thank yous are to the main partners of FameLab, the British Council and Cheltenham Science Festivals, the main funder being SFI, and the main supporters, CPL and Henkel. And thank you as well to all the regional partners who helped put this together. And if you had enjoyed that and you wanted to give your thoughts to us as well, there is a slide currently covering my face that will link you to the survey that we would really love for you to fill out. It's at famelab2021.com. Let us know your thoughts, everything about how stellar the MC was, I'm sure. Let us know all of these kind of things in this survey. It would be great to hear your thoughts. Please come back at the end of September and keep an eye on Twitter, Facebook, and the British Council website for the national final, when all the previous heat winners will be coming in and giving their talks again. And until then, thank you so much for taking part in FameLab with us all. Have a good night, and until next time, thank you and goodbye.